everyone, today we're going to be looking at a relatively easy visual effects shot that anybody can make to learn compositing and CGI super easy. Before we get started, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members. Without your support, I don't know if I could provide free content like I do here on YouTube, so I really do appreciate it. Okay, so like you saw at the beginning of the video, we're going to be leading to this shot right here. This will teach you all the basics of multipass compositing and also CGI inside of Blender. Now I'm going to be using Nuke for my compositors today. Of course, you can use After Effects or DaVinci Resolve, whichever one you're more comfortable in, but let's go ahead and start off with Blender. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop inside of Blender. You can see I have a few things set up by default. I have our camera tracking already done. I will have a tutorial link down below for the camera tracking that I do inside of Blender, and then also Synthize. And then also I have the color management down here set to Aces. I'll have another video in the description of the video I followed to install Aces if you're curious as well. I just like using Aces because it's a better color workflow if I'm using Nuke and DaVinci Resolve. Anyways, we can go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and add a CGI object into our scene. I found this amazing ship asset on Production Crate, which is an asset library that I use. You can go ahead and download this. I believe I downloaded the Blender version right here. And so just find whatever ship asset you want to actually add into the scene. There are plenty of free versions online. So we're going to go ahead and append that into the scene because it is in a Blender file. So let's locate that right here and then go to Object, and there we go. Now we have this object. Let's append that into the scene, and yeah, there we go. We have our ship object. I'm just gonna kind of place it in the scene, so right up here. Depending on how big you want it, you can mess around with this. I actually scaled when inside of camera tracking the scene to be accurately scaled, and so I'm gonna scale up the ship just ever so slightly more. But just remember, when you're doing camera tracking or anything like that, the scene scale is very, very important, especially for light balancing and realism like that, especially in like ambient occlusion, for example. And it's going to be important in this because we're going to be using a depth pass or a mist pass inside of Blender, and that has to do with real world scale values, and so just keep that in mind. Anyways, we have this set up. I am in cycle, so we're going to go to render view just to see what we have up here. Of course, we don't have any lighting set up in our scene, so what I'm going to do is inside of a shader editor and select it to world. We're going to add a environment texture, and I went ahead and just went on Polyhaven, is the HRI website that I like using, and we're going to plug this inside of here. I just went ahead and tried to find a foggy kind of texture up here that matches the kind of lighting and the shading of the actual scene. So we're just going to overcast this into the actual scene, and there you go. You can see that we're having some subtle blue kind of hues up here. For this scene, I noticed is a lot darker than what I actually needed, so I'm going to change that strength all the way up to, I believe, 6 in my testing was what looked good to me. But as you can see, we have this. Now this is a little bit hard to kind of judge. What we want is we want the fall off of the fog to kind of be more intense the further away an object is from the camera. And so since this front end of the ship is going to be closer to the camera, it's not going to be as foggy, versus the back of the ship is going to be a little bit more foggy. And so unfortunately, we don't have a great way to estimate this inside of the CGI process, but we're going to do most of our lighting and our fog adding inside of compositing, which is going to be a very good workaround. Anyways, we have this. This is looking good. Now we need to set up a few passes. Now I won't be going too involved into the multi-pass compositing workflow because there are many, many different things that you can do. I actually have many courses going over multi-pass compositing. I'll have some of those linked in the description below. But what we need to do is we'll come over to view layer properties, and we have all these different data passes right here. You can also do some different light passes, especially for this shot. It'd be nice to kind of break it up because it is a very reflective metallic ship. It'd be nice to break up the diffusion and the glossy and the transmission and all that stuff. But we're just going to be keeping it simple. We're just going to enable this mist pass. Now the Z pass, that is kind of a depth pass, but the reason I like using a mist pass instead is because we can make the mist pass have custom values versus the Z pass really has a lot of glitchiness and lets us in 32-bit flow, and it doesn't allow us to actually change some of those Z values in space. This is more of a utility pass versus the mist pass we like using as a mask, if that makes sense. So anyways, we have mist selected up here. You can see if we go to the compositing tab, we have this mist section over here. And so now to actually go ahead and affect the mist pass, we just want a black and white mask for our object, so that up here it's going to be more black versus back here it's going to be more white. So in order to actually affect our mist pass is, let's go up here to this little caret icon. We're going to go down to the render pass. Instead of combine, we're going to set it to mist right here. Now you can see everything is perfectly white. That is where we need to play around with the mist mist values. We're going to go to the world properties, down to mist pass. We have the start and the depth. You can think of the depth as like the end point of where the mist path is totally white, and the start is where it's totally black. And so just keep that in mind. We're going to pump this depth pass up. And we're basically just looking to get to the back of the ship where we have all the detail. So I can see even some detail back here. And also I usually when I'm making a mist pass, I like to have the front be more towards black, just so we have some greater kind of values in there. I don't like it that it's kind of gray right here. I don't want it to be totally black, because then we might clip some values out here, but just more black than this is currently. So we're going to bump this start up, do something like that. That is looking much better. So we'll just do 100 meters. So basically the mist is starting at 100 meters and then it's ending at 769 meters out here. And so we have a nice kind of gradient over here, and that is going to be very nice to use as a mask inside of compositing. So let's go ahead and set this back up to combined right here, just so we can see everything. Let's go ahead and give this a little render. You do want to be in solid view when you render, just to save on some computer resources. Let's hit F12 to render a still, just so we can see what is actually going on. Okay, so here we go. We'll come back out of here and go into compositing. And now if we hold shift control and then click, we can see the mist pass is right here. And then we have the image pass up here. Now don't worry, we have alpha transparency over here, but our mist pass actually doesn't use the alpha channel. That is totally fine, because we're going to be using unpremult and premult modes inside of Nuke. And so it won't really matter that we don't have an alpha channel in this pass. Anyways, let's go ahead and render this out. I'm going to add a file output node. This is just a node that replaces the composite node so that we can render out multiple passes at once. We can come up here to the node properties, and you want to make sure you have this kind of window enabled. I'm going to be rendering as a EXR multi-layer. We're going to do color depth to half. I don't need the full 32-bit float. We're going to go ahead and set it to DWAA just to save on a little bit of render space. And then color management, we're going to set this. I'm going to override this to, again, I like working in ACES CG. So we're going to override that there, and we're going to add 2 image sockets. The first one I'm just going to call RGBA. Nuke natively reads in images as RGBA. And so that's the reason I named the first one RGBA, so we don't have to shuffle out a different layer inside of Nuke. Don't worry if that sounded a little bit confusing. Just know that RGBA is kind of the native first pass inside of Nuke. And then next we can go ahead and name this one. I'm just going to name this one Mist, but you can name it whatever you want. Of course, save it in a kind of folder path up here. You can see I've already saved out some of these. And then we can go ahead and hook up our image to the RGBA socket, and then the Mist to the Mist socket right there. And so there we go. Now we have pretty much everything set up. But once you've done your testing and you're ready to render, you can come up here and render the animation. Okay, so once that's done, you should have a folder that looks like this that has CG_1 or whatever you named the actual file, all the way to the last frame, which I believe was 300. So CG 300. There we go. Let's go ahead and bring this inside of a brand new Nuke project. So I'll just kind of come over here. First of all, in any Nuke project, you do want to go ahead and set up these settings. And so my frame range is 1 to 300. That is good. The FPS is 23.976. That's the camera FPS that my camera shoots in. And then the aspect ratio, or the full size format, is going to be UHD 4K. That is the resolution that my camera shoots in as well. So just always do these inside of every single project or every single program you do. You always set those up first. Let's go ahead and go to color. I'm going to be using, again, ACES workflow. So OCIO right here, and then the ACES config is ACES 1.2. Okay, so let's go ahead and read in our footage. So I'm going to go hit R to read in, and here's our footage. This is the denoise version. I actually have a tutorial I did before going over my method of denoising footage and then adding grain back into it. It's the industry standard workflow. If you're interested in doing visual effects for the industry, this is a must-know kind of thing to do inside of visual effects. Anyways, I have the denoise footage. It's automatically being read as ACES CG, which is the kind of color space that it is read in. So ACES CG right here. That is all looking good. Let's go ahead and read in our CGI as well. So I'm going to come over here, render CG V2, and then input this over here. And there we go. Now we have the CG into our scene as well. And we do need to go ahead and merge these two together. And there you go. Now we pretty much have it exactly how it was looking inside of Blender. And we need to get it to look like it's actually integrated into the shot. So first things first, if I go ahead and add a gray node, I'll show you real quickly of something that we want to avoid. So if I play around with some of these values, I don't know if we'll be able to see it too well, but what we're actually doing doing is we're eroding in the edge a little bit with our grade. Very important concept to know about inside of compositing, especially inside of Nuke, is that we have to go ahead and unpre-multiply. This will basically unapply the alpha channel. You can see with it unapplied, if I come over here, you can see it actually has a little bit of a border in a buffer area, but our alpha channel, if I hit A over here, is not being affected. You can see it's unpre-multiplying that. And then what we want to do afterwards is we want to do pre-mult. And so basically, if I highlight both of these and then turn both of these on and off, you can see nothing is happening. And that is very ideal because now what we're basically doing is we're only color correcting to this unpre-multiply footage. And so that's going to apply to all these little border pixels that gets unpre-multiplied. You can see there's a little bit of a border here. And so now our grade is basically being applied larger than the alpha mask. And so that is the correct way to go ahead and apply grade. Again, for this shot, we didn't really notice, but if you ever have like a black or white fringe around your CGI, it is most likely to do with not using any grade nodes or whatever in a pre-multiplied pass versus unpre-multing it and then doing your grading and then pre-multing it afterwards. It's a very confusing process as a beginner, but just know it's a very important concept to grasp as a compositor. Anyways, we can go ahead and composite this shot. What I want to do first is let's go ahead and try to get some of the black values to match. So what I like to do is with our gray node, I can select this little button up here and we can see we have a little pencil icon. And then if I hold control and then shift, we can drag and drop an area over here. Also, I'm going to disable this little thing right here just so it doesn't flicker over there. So we're making sure we get the accurate kind of values. Now this is kind of the darkest area of the image, maybe up here as well. It doesn't really matter too much. Next, we can come to the lift, which is the black of what we're color correcting to. And so in our case, we just want a black kind of over here. We'll do something like over here. It's more of a blue, and so it should match a little bit closer to our image. Let's go ahead and disable that, and there you go. Now you can see it's matching much more closely to the black level of the actual kind of blackness over here to the footage and stuff. So that is looking much better. Next thing I want to do is let's go ahead and grab that mist pass. What I'm going to do is we're going to shuffle this out because this is a multi-layer EXR file. So we have multiple layers in here. You can see that denoted by this little green patch right here. These are our RGBA values, and then we have a little green patch. If you see anything over here, that usually means it has multiple layers inside of the actual read file right here. So we'll shuffle out a mist pass. You can see right here, we're shuffling that out into the alpha channel. You can see it's just a one single channel here. And so we have to shuffle that into the alpha channel of our output layer right there. So now if I come in here, hit A, you can see we have our mist pass in here, and it is the correct place. We have the blackest blacks right here, and then the whitest whites back here. And then there are many ways to kind of combine the fog and make the fog kind of match over here. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use a toe node. A toe node is basically the same as correcting the lift value right here, but it uses some different math than the gray node so that it actually has some more more exponential fall off in the lift section. I don't necessarily know all of the math or the science behind it. All I know is that usually when dealing with the lift or the darkest darks of your CGI, I usually use a toe node instead of a gray node. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, we can use this toe node as a mask to the shuffle node, or the shuffle as a mask to the toe. I got this a little bit mixed up. And so now in our toe node, all we're going to do is we're going to click this little black icon up here. And then we're going to, again, control shift and then click this sky texture up here. And so now we are basically selecting this to replace the kind of lift back here. And since our ship was black, that's why I'm using a toe node, just because, again, blacks is referring to the lift section of all of these things. So black is lift, gain is white, gamma is gray. You can think of it like that when grading. And so that's why I'm using a toe node. If it's not, you can use a gray node, but usually you want to be using a toe node when adding in fog over here. Anyways, we'll unpick select that. And now you can see we have, this is looking pretty good. Depending on your scene, it might be a little bit more foggy or less foggy. That's where we can come to the shuffle node, and we're going to grade the shuffle node. By default, it's set to the RGB channel. So we do need to set it to alpha since we're only dealing in the alpha channel over here, let's go over, go to our merge, and we're just going to play around with this a little bit. I'm going to mess around with the gain. Again, gain is the white values. And so in our alpha channel, our white values are back here versus our black values are back here. But as you can see, we can start to bleed in this a little bit more. I think the front of the ship could use a little bit more fog. So that's where I'll bring up the lift a bit as well. So something like that. You can see we're getting a little bit color correcting in there as well. And so that looks pretty good. I might bump it up just a tiny bit more just so it falls off ever so slightly, so you can almost barely see the back of the ship there. It's really depending on what you want to do for this shot. There's no right or wrong, just kind of whatever looks cool to you. But anyways, we have this graded. Now, one quick thing I always like to do is if we come back here and select some of this, you can see this alpha value down here. Since we have graded the alpha channel, that alpha value is above 1 now. And so that will create issues if we have any defocusing or any mask or combining mask or anything like that. We only want this value, the maximum to get is to 1. And so before, if we have this, you can see the maximum it gets is 1 down here, but then if we do some of this, you can see it's 1.6. All that to say, we need to add a clamp node after this, and you can see we are clamping the max to 1. And so basically all you need to know is if you look at this number down here, before it's 1.16, after it's the max is to 1. So just keep that in mind. This is a very important thing for alpha channel. You usually don't want your alpha to go above 1 for math combining reasons. But anyway, this is looking pretty good, and I think we are ready to go ahead and do some final things. Real quickly, there was a kind of lens spec on my camera lens I didn't notice when I was filming. We can quickly get that out just with a very simple kind of cleanup. What I'm going to do, let's go ahead and roto out this little section of this little dot. And so I'm just going to drag and drop an ellipse right here. It's looking good. We're going to blur this out a little bit, basically just feathering this out. I like using a blur node, but you can also use the feather inside of here. I just think the blur has a better fall off. So we have this right here. Next, we need to go ahead and we're going to add a transform node, because what we're going to do is we're going to transform this clip on top of itself and then shift it over a little bit so that it uses like this part of the thing. It's basically we're doing a kind of clone stamp, if you will, of this part over here, and using some of the actual footage values as they move. But anyway, we'll merge this back onto the transform. So as you can see, nothing has really changed if we come over here, because we're basically just not transforming anything on top of this. What we want to do instead is we want to move this. We'll grab this and we'll move it like down a little bit. So now we can see we basically just moved this down, and it's a layer on top of the original plate, but we only want it to affect in our roto region. And so in order to do that, we're going to hit K to add a copy node, and we're going to copy from the roto. And so over here, so the A needs to be into our roto, and then B needs to be in our transform. You can see a little bit of weird stuff is happening, and that's because we're not pre-multiplying. So we're going to go ahead and pre-mult node that. And then as you can see, this is the only thing that we're doing. We're just having a little dot that's going over here. And if we shift it around, right, with our transform, we are basically shifting it to be this little dot and get that away. So we're going to move that down in the Y a little bit. And there we go. Now we have the dot removed, and we're just going to merge that back on top of the footage. It works well for this shot because it's a very solid background. If we had anything more complex like these trees or whatever, we could not do this method. This only works for very solid backgrounds or anything that's very heavily patterned. The other way you could do it is adding a roto paint node, but that's a little bit more complex for this shot. I just like doing a quick and dirty kind of thing like this. And then I'm going to add a quick crop with a reformat on here just so we don't have any bounding issues you can see down here with these dotted lines. We're just going to remove that. But yeah, so that is a very quick cleanup of that lens. And then the final thing that I want to do for the shot is add some of our grain back onto the shot, because we had some pretty nice grain in the camera that I'm using. So I want to keep that grain intact. Again, we are using the denoise version of the footage for our actual compositing. The reason being is because our CGI is actually denoised as well. And so in the compositing section of this tutorial, we're doing denoise matching with denoised, versus down here is where we want to add that noise back on top. And so the way I'm going to be using that is we're going to be using a DAZ grain method. And so DAZ grain is a free plugin that comes with Nuke. You can go add this to comp. And then we want to add a little dot out here by pressing period. We have the degrain plate. And then we're going to bring the original footage, which is right here. I'll just copy that back over instead of reading that in. Again, this is in ACES CG as well. And so this is the original footage. If I come over here, you can see if we zoom real closely and maybe bring this down a little bit, you can see this is with noise and then this is without noise. So basically DasGrain is going to compare these two different versions and try to rip out the grain from the two and then apply it back over top of it. So anyway, we have, let me reset this. We have the degrain plate that is all the way up here. Quick tip with the dot nodes, you can hold Alt H to actually hide those, so it makes it a little bit more clean in our actual kind of piping system down here. Anyways, in DasGrain, this one is super easy. All we're going to do is click Analyze, and that is pretty much it. The nice thing about this shot is, again, the sky is very solid, and so we don't have to do any more tweaking with the grain. If you have like patterns in the sky, you know, say if there's a bird flying through this, what you would actually have is the grain pattern of the bird would actually show up on the actual CGI. And so how you would do that is you would come over to this Replace section, activate Scatter, and do all this stuff over here to actually activate Scatter. It is very slow, as you can see, to actually load, and so since we don't need it, we can go ahead and deactivate that there. But yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. The final thing that we would need to do is hit write and then write out our clip. I went ahead and rendered this out already as a H.264, so we can take a look at that. Here we go. Here is the final shot. You can see we got a pretty good, decent result. You can see the grain is especially matching. There is a bit of H.264 compression going on, but you can see we're having some grain on that ever so slightly, and I think it's matching pretty well. You can get a lot more advanced into exactly matching this if you want to have any movement, maybe cutting out some of these trees or doing a luminance key or anything, so it actually goes in front of the trees or anything like that. But this is a relatively easy shot, and especially if you have a foggy day yourself, I definitely recommend you guys go outside and film some of your own footage, either on your iPhone or if you have a camera or anything like that, because this is a very easy shot that you can do to learn not only visual effects, but on how to actually film for visual effects as well. Anyways, guys, we have a Discord and Patrons. Links to those will be in the description below, but thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.